Good morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. For the past month or so, all eyes have been on the Mitchell Park Conservatory, best known as the Milwaukee Park Domes, located in Mitchell Park, which is the oldest park in the Milwaukee Park system. Falling concrete and other much-needed repairs cause concern at the historic skyline fixture. And here to give us the latest on the future of the domes is Sandy Folaron. She is the Horticultural Services Director for the domes. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning.
Appreciate you being here. And as I mentioned, it was in late January when a fallen chunk of concrete was discovered at the domes. And then February 5th is when officials said all three domes will be closed indefinitely because of safety concerns. But since then, there have been some other announcements.
A good announcement as well. The domes will reopen on May 1st, so that's good. We were in the middle of remediation and inspections too, so this isn't the first time that we've had to close to ensure public safety and address some of the netting or safety procedures to keep people safe.
Yeah, the culprit behind the issues would, of course, be age. Then you've got moisture, humidity, and then in a climate like ours, changes in temperature. The domes is really a unique structure that has been in place for many years. And so it's just like a roof on someone's house. At some point, it's going to need some fixing.
Well, that's a great analogy. It's 50 years old, by the way, and who doesn't need a little tweaking after 50? It's true. And a lot of it has to do with moisture coming in and freezing, expanding the concrete. I wouldn't go so far as to always say chunks. There's a lot of smaller chips, and those have been monitored since, actually 2013 was our first inspection. So these are things that we look at, we look for. My staff is pretty adept at monitoring that. And this is a culmination of being 50 years old and maybe looking at what the future might be for that facility.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we have you here today. Milwaukee County Executive Chris Abele, he announced during a press conference that the show dome, which is the most accessible and most used of the domes, like you just said, will be reopened by May 1st. This is a temporary fix that's costing $500,000, and he's going to be asking for an additional $500,000 for the desert and tropical domes, right?
Correct. That remediation will take place in the show dome as soon as possible, which will allow us to open the show dome back to the public and keep our brides happy.
Yes.
Because all of this has displaced a lot of bridal parties, and there's a lot of angst there.
Of course.
And rightfully so when you book 2 years in advance. Then the second $500,000 will take care of remediation in the tropical and the desert.
Okay, and so we've had the privilege, as you can see, we have a lot of admiration for the domes. The picture behind you is of such. And
Absolutely.
We've filmed on location at the domes and had an opportunity to walk through and give our viewers a firsthand look of exactly what's there. And I spoke with Peter Lepowski, I think it was 2 years ago we were there, and he did a really great job of giving us the history of the domes. So let's take a look. There's a lot of history behind the Mitchell Park domes, dating all the way back to 1898. So tell us how we got here to where we are
today. It's interesting, right? At that time, that's when the domes first opened up, and then you move into the later years, into the 1950s, and then you find out that they had to build a new domes, renovate it, and so they did. And then as you go forward, what you see today actually is the domes that in the 1950s were being built, and then in 1968 they opened. And Lady Bird Johnson was the one that actually was here at the grand opening to officiate. So it's amazing when you look at that, the one from the past, and you see the way that people dressed in that era. And it was unique in itself to have some consider that. And then looking at it today, what we have now is a most unique structure. There's nothing like it in the world. If you see the glass and these three domes, it's very unique.
Yeah, and when
that
they
stands out.
Went to actually redesign the domes, there was this contest, so to speak. And tell us a little bit about that.
Right, and then what happened, the gentleman, architect Mr. Greeby, went out and he did these domes and designed them. And like I say, till this day, it's so unique that you can't find anything like it. So it's what stand all this time in the way the structure is. Because you think today of all the different architecture that you see and all the different types around the world, and still today, it's unique in its own right.
Well, there you have it. And an engineer study actually concluded that the cost of refurbishing the landmark could range between $65 and $75 million.
Right, and I think in some cases that people have taken that information to another level. You could build a whole new conservatory for that kind of money.
Wow.
Thus, those discussions that are going to incur after this town hall meeting. You know, Milwaukee is frugal, and so am I. I'm born and raised here, so
Yeah.
common sense usually dictates. But those are the kinds of hard types of discussions that residents will have to decide. Do they want a new facility? You know, there's only so many Band-Aids you can put on a facility, and it was built in the 60s. So things like energy efficiency, sustainability, none of those were terms back there, really. It was the 60s. It was
Absolutely.
fun. It's conoidal. It's different. It's new. It really is shaped conoidal. That's the name for the shape of the domes.
Wow. And he just explained how it all came about in the video. But when you really walk through and see the amount of maintenance it takes to run a tropical dome,
Sure.
so to speak, and a
Right.
desert dome in Wisconsin,
Exactly.
there's a lot of work. And, I think people have to realize that this stuff costs money.
It does.
And I think it's something we've all taken for granted. And we feel like the domes are there. They're going to always be there. But with this situation, as you said, the citizens are going to have to help make a decision on whether the domes are going to be fixed and be there for future generations, or
Correct.
actually be a thing of the past.
Well, they were a cultural institution, so they were built in the 60s, like when the zoo expanded and museums were built and the libraries were expanded. So it was part of that cultural institution where people were building these facilities, these public facilities, for value for the residents that lived here. And at that point, it didn't matter, it didn't have to be a cash cow. It didn't, there wasn't talk about, you better make enough money for what you're doing here, because it was for the common good.
Yeah.
We had a socialistic mayor, Zeidler, and he believed in the good for everybody, and so it was part of that whole era. But it doesn't translate so well anymore, does it?
It makes a lot of sense, and I'm thinking that you're probably going to get a lot more estimates than that.
Oh, absolutely.
65 million.
That was probably something that had been done in, years ago, and then just updated with today's prices. I think it's meant to also give a realistic idea to people about what a repair could be, what a fix the dome scenario really could be. And as we know, anytime we throw out a figure like that, it could easily go to just continually go up,
Yes,
up, up. Because
indeed.
nothing ever seems to be less than what's quoted. Never. So
That's with everything, right?
everything.
And the decision to completely refurbish the domes has to ultimately not only be made by the public, but the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors.
Absolutely,
So you
yeah.
guys are doing a whole plethora of public hearings to
Yes.
kind of get a feel for what people are thinking.
Well, and that's so important. The facility is tax supported by dollars from county residents. And so it's important. What do we do? How do we do this? How do the supervisors feel about it? It takes political will. As much as I wish politics wasn't a part of this equation, it will be.
Of course it will
It's
be.
election year.
Yes.
So you have that
Yes.
kind of mixed in. But I'm hoping that the public sees the value in the facility and really looks at different options, has an open-mindedness in what the future is going to be for the facility. I think it needs to continue to be part of Milwaukee's landscape.
Absolutely. And you mentioned politics. So the race for Milwaukee County executives coming up in the general elections on April 5th. And it's been said already that the domes are sure to take on a political context of its own in the upcoming weeks. So
Sure.
really the stance that these candidates are taking when it comes to the domes could be a make or break for them when it comes to the voters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, that's a sticky wicket, they call that, because it's an issue that it didn't just happen recently. I mean, the domes are 50 years old, and you can't really point fingers and say you're responsible for
Right.
this or you're not responsible for this. So it's a hard discussion, but I'm hoping that voters and along with the public kind of can put that aside, because, politics is politics, and who's here today sometimes is gone tomorrow.
That's
so
true.
It really needs to be about the future and for the residents, not so much about who happens to be sitting in a chair at a certain time.
Yes, because if we look back to the year 2000, there was a master plan for renovation and upgrades,
Yes.
recommended spending $32 million, but county officials at the time never moved forward with the proposal. So that leads me to asking you, what will these temporary fixes or repairs look like?
I'm hoping that these temporary repairs allow us to keep the domes open to the public, because you don't want to close the doors. You lose that engagement with the public. You lose that sense of we're still here, we're still operating.
Yeah.
And you know we take care of plants. A lot of people will ask us, what about the fish? What about the birds? Plants are still, I have a horticultural staff that takes care of it, and this is a $3.2 million collection of plants. So we are a conservatory. Sometimes we lose sight of that. We're taking care of that business. Depending what the future holds, that was an interesting study that was done. And elements of that study were actually fulfilled, a different parking lot, a different access points for the domes. But at that point, it wasn't, well, apparently we didn't have $30-some million to upgrade some of those things. So again, you know, we just moved on, put a Band-Aid on, made it safe, and opened up the doors.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we're looking at least a couple of years to give us enough time to look to see what the ultimate solution will be.
Okay, and so these repairs, will that buy, what, about 4 to 5 years?
I'm going to say, I would like to say 3 to 5 years.
Okay. Okay. The glass that's used at the domes is extremely unique. Is it true that they don't even make it anymore?
Well, it's industrial grade glass. It is individual. You would think that it's the same piece of glass, but when we had the glass replaced 2 years ago, they replaced a lot of fractured and broken pieces. Each piece had to be removed individually, taken to the glass workshop, and cut out to form, because not one or the other is the same.
Wow. It just really goes to show you the
unique.
amount, the amount of time and effort it went into even designing this. So that's why, just my opinion, it's important to keep it there and have that historic value, because there's certain things that were done then that are not done anymore, and it just really makes the conversation that more interesting when you talk about the domes.
Well, the very same glass that we're talking about is also not insulated glass. So, you know, there's the balance. The balance is talking about when we talk about economic stability or sustainability. Our heating and utility bills are pretty amazing.
I can only imagine.
So there's that too to put into the equation.
Yeah, and you're trying to keep a tropical dome over there, so
In
that
winter,
makes it
when
really
it's 30 below, it's a challenge.
Say no more. You did mention that there are a lot of weddings and other gatherings that are held at the domes each year, and every month that the facility goes unused, there is a huge loss of revenue for the county. And the truth is, you just said it, it's very expensive to operate the domes, so there needs to be that balance. So I think that the answer as to what would take place temporarily was fast and will make the public happy for those individuals who not only had events planned, but for those who just love the domes and love the idea that they could take a walk through the desert in dead winter.
Well, Mother's Day is coming up. It's a huge photo opportunity for moms to come to the domes. We've missed a lot of our train show events, which are really our big draws, our ethnic festivals, our Very Fairy Princess Day. That was a hard one. Steampunk, okay, but we do a variety of at least 26 different special events to draw different kinds of demographics of people in. And winter, of course, we're the hot spot in winter. So we kind of lost that because of the closing. But we're moving on.
And
Happy
the good news is May 1st, the show dome will be open. And I'm wondering, do you think, or will this come from after you've had public hearings, do you think there will be some type of fundraising effort to help save the domes?
I think so. There's a lot of people that are ready, from someone wanting to donate cupcakes in the shape of the domes, which is one of my favorite ideas.
That.
Why not? Food or beer, maybe we could do it. But there's a lot of support out there. And the only thing that we're trying to work through is, what does it mean to save the domes? Do we recreate a new conservatory like they did in the 60s? Is it time to retrofit? Or, you know, that's all dollars and cents. So that's got to be a very public discussion of what we can do, what the people want
And you do have what's called Friends of the Domes, which is an
Yes.
exclusive club of domers who have helped preserve and protect this historic landmark over the years. So I'm sure that they're very passionate about what's going to take place with the
Absolutely.
domes. But I really do appreciate you coming by and sharing the information and
Thank
bringing
you.
everybody up to date, because it's one of those stories where it can take over the headlines because it is a part of the skyline and they're absolutely beautiful. So-
Absolutely. I'm happy to come back and give you updates. I live and breathe the domes.
Yes, I
Yes,
appreciate
so-
it. Sandy Folarone is the Horticultural Services Director at the Mitchell Park Domes. And for more information on the conservatory, again, you can log on to milwaukeedomes.org. When we return to Our Issues Milwaukee, we'll switch gears and focus on a campaign that's goal is to get the word out about opportunities to buy homes in Milwaukee and the resources available from city government and community participants. We'll discuss Take Root Milwaukee right after this.